you ready to party? Let's go.
Well, welcome. Mike McMahon, how you doing? Welcome to Let's Go.podcast.
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
That was my first official opener that I've done, so sorry I was a little...
You did really good.
I was a little nervous on that one.
That was perfect.
But honestly, thank you so much for coming out. I know we got a lot to talk about. Look forward to kind of getting to know you and then having the opportunity for you to let people get to know you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So you were just saying that you were playing softball all day.
I was.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, at what point in life does that sound like that would be an exhausting day, right? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's one of those things where it's like going back, and I'm saying this because I've played softball for a long time. I played baseball growing up, and that took me to a certain limit, and then it was like as soon as I could transition to softball, I was all about it. So I played a lot of tournaments and stuff, but it was like as the years went on, all of a sudden, it's like, holy crap, I'm sore for days afterwards.
Yeah, I was totally gassed. You know, I was like running around third base into home. I kept thinking like, oh, my legs are about to give out, you know, but I can't. I got my little boys watching me play, and you know, and it's just like,
you're like, don't mess up.
Oh, please don't trip.
Up.
Please don't trip. You know, but yeah, I mean, I'm 45, so
well, you look young, man.
Yeah. So I'll be 46 this year, and I came on as a police officer at 31.
Okay.
So.
Dude, so actually, we'll start back. Just a little background about yourself. Where are you from? Grow up?
I was born and raised in Boston. Actually, a city right outside of Boston.
Okay.
So born and raised there. Went to college out there. Got my bachelor's in criminal justice. I've always wanted to be a police officer. For the longest time, I had multiple cops on my street, and you know, it was a really respected thing. When you were growing up in Boston, you were either, you know, one of three things: a teacher, a cop, or a criminal. You know?
I was going to say, like, the only thing I know about Boston is from like the movie The Town.
Yeah.
Right. When they're like, oh, Southie or whatever.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
Right,
it really is. Yeah.
Very underrated. I loved it.
Yeah.
But
and the accents are on point.
Right?
Yeah.
Does everyone sound like that over there?
You know, it's funny. People always say like, well, you don't sound like you're from Boston, but I've been out here for 14 years, and you know, I still tend to think in that accent, you know, but if I start to get upset, or if I'm maybe drinking one too many oat sodas, it'll start coming out, you know.
Oat soda?
Yeah.
As you say, car?
Yeah.
Hey, get in the car.
Well, you know, it's like, you know, the car, or the, you know, we're going to the Packy, which is the liquor store.
Oh,
you
okay.
know, things of that nature. It's just, it'll start coming out. I'll start just rolling my R's, and, you know.
Right, what'd you say, an oat soda? Is that what you called it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we don't have any oat sodas out tonight, so maybe we'll hold back the the Boston accent. But so you came out to California in pursuit of law enforcement?
Yeah. Actually, so I had been trying since graduating. You know, like I said, I'm 45, so I graduated college in 1998, and from 98 until 08, I was trying to be a cop back east, and you know, the classes, you know, I'm sure like the fire academy, it's really competitive out there.
Yeah.
And they're really small, and you know, it's not like out here where there's one every month. So I tried for 10 years. You know, 9/11, I went and tried out for NYPD. I tried out for FD, and that was the hardest PFQ I've ever taken in my life.
Oh, really?
You know? NYFD's PFQ was no joke. And
for people who are listening, what does PFQ stand for?
Physical fitness qualification, something like that. But their physical fitness test was no joke at all. And so I didn't get a call back. But you know, I kept on the path. You know, I always knew I wanted to be a police officer, so I just kept at it. And I have a cousin out here who's on the LAPD, and he's like, hey man, why don't you just, you know, throw your name in the hat and see if anything happens. So I did. They gave me a call and said, hey, can you be out here in 3 weeks? Sure. Okay. So I gave my 2 weeks notice. I was working at a district attorney's office, and I threw everything I had into the back of my car, and I lived in a motel in Lawndale for a couple of weeks before the academy started. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
man, so that's so you were all in on becoming a police officer.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I know that time period, I felt like because I started like early 2000s and first getting hired on with the department in 2004 maybe, but I'd taken tests for a couple years. And I just remember like, going, you put an application in and it's like, yeah, there's 5,000 people and we're hiring 40,
Yeah.
And you're like, geez, man, how am I going to make it? And I just feel like now a little bit, it's a lot less, as far as I know that there's a lot of contributing factors to that, but I just feel like as far as the, like the amount of people applying for positions versus how many they're taking, like it's a lot closer. Like your odds right now, and I'm not sure if it translates to the police department, but I know with fire specifically, right now is a good time to try to get hired as a firefighter.
Yeah, I think. I have so many opinions as to how policing has come full circle in the last 10 years or so. Mm-hmm. It's really the face of policing in America. I think it's changed because the narrative of the police, they tend to paint the police in this giant brushstroke that all police are bastards and the police will they'll kill you in an instant, and they really paint us in this bad light. So I think what it's doing is it's creating this air where truly qualified men and women who are able to think for themselves are looking at what's happening in America and they're saying, well, wait a minute, I have a passion to do this, but why do I want to do it? Right? So they're going and finding other employment, and that leaves sort of like the mid-tiers to the lower tier people that normally may or may not have made it. And so I think it's creating a lot of issues within policing as a whole, because the people who may or may not deserve to be there are there now because the truly top candidates are moving on to other things because they see the writing on the wall.
So basically, like in a nutshell, that the kind of the public narrative and then how, even the government to a certain extent talks about the police department. I mean, like, let's call it what it is over the last couple of years, the defunding the police, the let's be real, like over years, like, there's always been like a stigma towards cops sometimes as far as like, they're doing bad things or whatever. And I don't mean like everybody, like I'd say like, I don't know how to really address this correctly, but like there are that stigma sometimes. I think that like if the layperson had no idea like who a police officer was, or that if they didn't know anybody personally, they would just turn on a movie and they'd be like, oh, these guys are crooked or these guys are whatever.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because it's like, that's not the real world, And so I can only imagine having worked in were you working in law enforcement and dealing with that over the years, and especially in the last couple of years has been, I'm sure, pretty gnarly, to say the least. But that's a good point that you bring up as far as, new candidates and people wanting to get involved in law enforcement, because it's like, yeah, if you had some top tier people that wanted to be hired and do, whether it's driven by community service or whatever their drive is to get involved in that, probably detours a lot of people because they're like, I don't want to, jump into that and automatically be labeled, or thinking, the layperson's going to think, oh, this guy's a piece of shit or something, it's just not fair, So I could see that being a problem. And what an interesting, because I mean, that's the next level, right? Is that like, okay, well, if we're going to, let's say there's, 10% of the top candidates that normally would have tried to become or get involved in law enforcement, now are like, I ain't dealing with that shit.
Yeah.
And so now they still need to hire, they still need police officers. So what do? They either drop, qualifications or change things around to make the application process still, open and get people to come in. So you're actually maybe getting less qualified personnel,
Right.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, it tends to become problematic because, there is that hyper-focused laser on us. And when you're a 21, 22, 23-year-old newly minted police officer, but you have zero life experience, that is a glaring... that just shows up on your face every single day. You have nothing. If you're a brand new police officer and you're still living at home, mom and dad are paying for your 2017 Camaro, and you're worried about if you can go drinking this weekend, and if your mom's going to get mad if you come home too late. You have no business, right? I mean, but it does come into play. I mean, of course you're going to learn that stuff on the job. But if you haven't ever suffered, I mean, a lot of our job is like you're weighing consequences, right? If I do this during a call, well, it translates to this. And, for a lot of people that haven't ever had to, especially out here in LA, if you've never had to decide on, well, do I pay the electricity or do I pay my car, right? I mean, a lot of these guys don't understand that, and it's very static. Well, the book says that I have to do it this way, and that's the way they do it.
Right.
We used to be able to operate within the spirit of the law. You had the letter of the law, you had the spirit of the law, and you could make decisions on your own. But now they're getting away. So much of policing now is more of a decision tree. Police officers are sort of being trained in the academy. If this happens, move down to this. And if that happens, yes or no, you move over here. And that's how they're handling problems. And that's how a lot of supervisors are handling problems now. The independent thinker is sort of becoming a dinosaur.
Yeah. And so I'm not in law enforcement. So anything that I say, if I'm completely off kilter, please just tell me. And it's because I've never worked as a police officer. I see what you're saying with that, though, as far as from upper management and as far as how they handle things with their, I don't want to say subordinates, but people that work under them, is that if it's going more now to everything, which I agree to a certain extent that there should be law that is enforced and you work under a set of guidelines.
Right.
But those guidelines are a large gray area. And I think it's really easy, especially someone not coming from law enforcement or any kind of public service for that matter. And you just see like, oh, cop shot so-and-so. Oh, it happened again.
Right.
And I'm not saying that there isn't situations where the cop is wrong.
Right.
Because that's like with anything. And I'm not like saying it's not important, because I think striving for excellence is for whatever job you do and how you live your life should be a game plan that we all implement personally. Mm-hmm. But everyone seems to discredit something when that happens, when the reality is that like that is seconds of a decision point that's going to change your life or the other person's life, and then that's your job. When everyone seems to be quick about like, oh, the cops killed so and so, this or this, but then it's like, well, that cop got shot when he was pulling somebody over. That cop got killed. This person ran up on a police officer sitting in his car doing paperwork, shot him in the head.
Right.
Doesn't seem to stick ever as much.
Right.
And it's unfortunate because it's like, I think we can collectively say all of it is not good. Right. It's like, and then how do we strive to get to that better spot? And it's like, I personally, I disagreed with the whole defund the police thing, and I'm pretty adamant to talk about that. Like, I think that that's ridiculous. In fact, I believe that maybe we need more funding for police to get either better training, better critical stress debriefing, look, people that have a 10-year career in law enforcement, and like I'm coming from the fire department side of it, you see a lot of messed up things that can mess with your head as life goes on, and we can talk about that in a second. But, so to think, it's like, yeah, we need to have, everyone is held up to a certain standard. Do I trust when I call 911 because of X, Y, and Z, and I need the police department to show up to my house? Do I trust that those people are going to do the best that they can do? Yeah. Does it mean that sometimes it isn't? Yes. Does it mean that they do? Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like we live in this kind of variable society, and it's really easy to cast judgment when, like, you hear a couple of things on the news, and then next thing you know, it's like everyone's talking about how shitty the police department is. And then I couldn't disagree more,
right.
And it's unfortunate that it happens that way, but it's like, what do we do?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about the daily interactions that police officers in America have, there's somewhere south of 900,000 police officers nationwide in a population of over 320 million. That's not a lot. That's not a lot of cops per person.
That's not
right.
enough.
And so, what the media likes to do is they'll focus in on that one little tiny variable of all of the calls handled per day, per state, per city, per town by police officers. They'll focus in on that one, right? And they'll spin it out of control. Right, and then all of a sudden it just takes hold and it just grows tentacles and spreads across America. That's what happens to us, and especially with the LAPD, we're the world's most famous police force. right? Outside of maybe NYPD.
Right.
But people look to us. We set precedent, whether it's good or bad, for the actions that we have. The LAPD actually has a tighter set of rules that we're governed by than any other federal agency.
Oh, really?
Right. So we are really ratcheted down, and we're set on point about the things that we can and can't do. And it's a shame. It's a shame that the good things that we do is so overshadowed by one mishap, right? In 14 years, I have never met a police officer that, you know what, I'm going to go out and kill somebody today. I'm going to go out and hurt somebody. No, that just doesn't happen.
Right. I feel like if that was said, like, I mean, I can't speak to 60 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what that mentality is like. I wasn't around for that time, but I feel like if there's somebody like that today, and it wasn't like a group of people who are like, like the problem childs of the department or whatever, they would get called out in a second. You'd be like, dude, you're sitting here saying you're going to go F somebody up, or
right.
You know what I mean? I just don't feel like that's how. I mean, I don't know. We work hand in hand with the police officers. You know what I mean? Like I've never gotten that vibe, and I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, because I know there's always the catch-all, right? Like you can sit there and be like, you said that you've never been around anybody, and I'm, and as I could say the same, for being in public service for 15 years, I've never been in a situation where I'm like, oh, this guy's purposely doing something wrong, ever. But, but then when you try to talk to, someone who's maybe really against the police department, or they have their feelings about it, whatnot, and you try to explain that to them, they don't take into consideration anything you're telling them.
No.
It's just like, well, things used to be this way, or this is a certain, and it's like, dude, come on, man. Like, are we going to all move forward together, or, are we going to only hold what makes things like viable for a narrative that you're trying to sell? Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the people see us as a paramilitary organization. We are set up, we have rank, we have file, we have a hierarchy, and they see us as a paramilitary sort of occupying force, I guess, in some circumstances. But to break someone's cognitive dissonance that they've developed over a long period of time, just using only sort of cherry-picked situations. Yeah. Most people, if most people that are against the police, in my opinion, if they actually saw what we did on a daily basis, if they were able to open their eyes and not judge it, I think everyone's opinion would change. Because what are we? We're moms and dads, brothers and sisters, husbands and wives, right? We're just people, but we answer a higher calling, much like the fire department. When we come on this job, we raise our right hand, we swear an oath of allegiance to the United States Constitution, and in California, we also swear one to the Constitution of California. Yeah. And so we strive every day to abide by that, right? Yeah. And people who answer the call to be first responders, I mean, every day, that is our life. We don't just turn it off. We go home and we're still first responders. We the drive to work, we're still first responders. So I think it's a narrative, especially in Los Angeles area, that they like to paint us in the negative light because it drives ratings.
That's an unfortunate truth, I think. And it's too bad, because I don't know, I feel like we can go down a crazy rabbit hole with this one, but
I love rabbit holes.
But what I will say that is, me too, actually, really do.
We all do. We love conspiracy theories.
I'm not gonna bullshit with you. I was like, I left my tinfoil hat outside, but no, there was while you were talking about this, it reminded me of watching a video. I believe, do you know who Charlemagne the God is? Mm-hmm. Okay, so a personality. I think he does podcasting and had some radio stuff. He's like really popular, actually. Just after, I think it was after, is it Derek Chauvin was convicted, with everything that's been going on and with the defunding the police and everything, he did a police training deal where, I don't know if he was using sim rounds or maybe it was a VR setup or however it was, but the video was like, basically he got to pretend to be a police officer, and he had to come up to, it was either a vehicle or a house or whatever, and to be able to disseminate, a threat from like a neutral party.
Right.
Right. And this dude got it wrong like every time. He was just shooting all the wrong people. And it was interesting because, and that's not, there's a tons of videos like that, but it was like, this is like celebrity coming out of his comfort zone, whether he was for or against the police, he was agreeing to do this to like shed some light on like, look, this is how hard the job is. Right. And I watch all those videos of, you know, stuff going wrong. And there was one not too long ago where someone called them to the house and the guy was waiting at the door. And as he walked up, the guy pulled out a gun and started shooting right at the cop as he was walking up to the door. Otherwise, just standing there, not looking, you know, like a threat really. And the cop was kind of cruising up like, hey, sir, did you call? And he's like, started shooting at him. Right. And it's like those put things in perspective, you know, and I was like, I hope everyone sees that kind of stuff just to maybe not change your mind completely, but at least start it in a different direction as far as being like, damn, that is a crazy environment to live in. Because, you know, it's like, look, at the end of the day with the fire department, it was like people generally call us for help and want us there. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like even then not liking that we show up, right? But with the police, you know, it's like you guys are constantly stepping into these extraordinarily uncomfortable scenarios. And then you have to make life and death decisions on a quick second. And sometimes that's because you follow the guideline like you were talking about earlier, or the real world where your past experience, your life experience, your understanding of people in general paints you in a better position to be like, okay, I know this is going somewhere south, or, you know, taking that quick step. And I don't think that there's like a right and wrong answer to it. Like there's no like, hey, how do we make this better? It's like, well, people need to get experience. You know, people need to have like either better understanding of, you know, like IDing things while they're happening, or maybe preemptively thinking something bad's going to happen constantly, so you're not like as reactionary. But then at the end of the day, it's like you have no idea what we're doing. You know what I mean? Or what someone else is doing. So I don't know. When I see that kind of stuff, it kind of floors me a little bit because I really appreciate what you guys do. And look, let's be real. Like I said, not everyone's awesome. There's shitbags in every profession. Yeah, that's police, fire, doctors, the CDC. No, I'm just kidding. That one. We're going to go into that in a minute. I know we were talking about the police department right now.
No, but you know, it's true though, because you know, I mean, it's even in fire, you know, every day is an on-the-job training experience, right? I mean, the amount of information that I've forgotten over the last 14 years, I couldn't even fathom. But every day you learn something new, and you take that and you incorporate it into who you are as a police officer. You know, there's a core value that the LAPD preaches, and it's always quality through continuous improvement, right? And that's something that we really live by. You know, we're always striving to be better. You know, and like I alluded to earlier, whether it's something good or something bad happened, we're always learning from our experiences on the job.
95% of your efficiency of whatever profession that you're doing, at least in public work type stuff like this, I think it's on the job. Right. You know, it's like, yeah, when you go through an academy, like I'm speaking for the fire side of it, but yeah, you go through the academy, you know, the basics, you know, things that you're supposed to be looking for that may look completely different in the real world, or being a paramedic and that kind of, you know what I mean? Like analyzing people, being able to make judgment calls, or like anticipating certain things because, you know, not because the book said it, because it didn't. But now I've seen this, you know, 1,000 times, and I know what this looks like. I'm going to go this way with it. Or I've been in a building that's looked like this a handful of times, and I'm like, okay, you know, we're in a bad spot. We need to get out.
Exactly.
Right? And I can only imagine it's the same thing as being a police officer. Yeah. You know, you're constantly in a state of learning, and I totally agree with that. It's like, yeah, I can't recite every definition from the textbook that they force in your head during the academy, but I learn something new every day.
Yeah,
every day. Yeah.
It's like, and a lot of our skills are perishable, right? So, you know, if I arrest a guy that has a gun, but I haven't arrested a guy with a gun in, you know, 4 months, I'm not going to remember how to do that stuff. You know, It's all perishable skills on this job, and you know, and you know, at some point the hair on the back of your neck starts to stand up and your butthole puckers because you're like, oh Jesus, this is a really narrow hallway and I got to go to the very end door. You know, they call that the fatal funnel, right? And it's like, oh, I don't want to be stuck in this hallway. You know, did I bring the right equipment? Did I bring do I bring the taser? Do I bring the beanbag? Do I bring the 40 millimeter, foam launcher? What's the situation? It's like, take a minute, step back. You've been here before. Here's what we do.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think, especially in our profession, you know, we all lean on each other. We all have a sixth sense of humor. We're all brothers and sisters, but we all lean on each other, you know? And I think, I know for a fact it's the same way with FD.
Especially with the sixth sense of humor.
Yeah. Well, when you see what we see every day, you know, people,
morbidity, yeah.
When people look at us on the outside and like, well, what the F are they laughing at? You know, we laugh because it prevents us from crying, you know, and it's not something that we are able to bring home. I mean, thankfully, a lot of us we don't bring it home. But
it's preferred not to.
Yeah.
Because that's where stuff gets really tricky. But that's what we were talking about earlier, was saying, like, you know, being on for that long and after seeing, you know, just a lot of just sadness. Yeah. I mean, that's the best way I could put it, is that, you know, eventually things stick a little bit, but part of the diffusing process is talking about it with your crew members or whomever. And sometimes, it's like, look, I hate to say it, but it might come out a little bit morbid. But I'll be honest with you, that sometimes is the best way to deal with it. I'm not saying it's the only way to deal with it, you know, depending on how intense it was. But sometimes that banter, which, again, like the layperson's going to be like, oh, those guys are assholes, or I can't believe they talk about something like and just act like they don't care.
It's a coping mechanism.
It definitely isn't because we don't care.
Right.
It isn't because of that. I assure you.
And that, you know, just to interrupt you real quick, I mean, most people don't understand the people that we interact with every day. We see them at the worst day of their lives, right? And people don't understand that. It's typically the worst day of their lives when they need to call us, whether it's you or whether it's me. And people don't understand that.
Well, it's never because they want to just say, what's up?
Yeah, let me buy you some coffee.
Hey, we happen to grill some burgers for you all.
Right.
Why don't you come in the back here? You know, take your feet up for a second.
Hey, these lazy boys just fell off the back of a truck. Do you guys want them?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, no, that's definitely doesn't exist. And that's the thing too. And I think that's why it's so important to, I try to be really open with people, like with this job. And, you know, like, you know, everyone always asks, like, well, what's the worst thing you've seen? And be like, I can tell you like the worst 40 things that I've seen. You know what I mean? I was like, how many bad, scary movies have you seen in the last 5 years? I was like, there's probably a handful of things that I can equate to. I've seen something along those lines.
Yep.
Except for the alien abduction stuff. Not yet. That's coming, I feel like.
But I mean, you know, like how many times you've responded to a fatal traffic accident?
A lot,
right?
yeah.
Right? And that's hard, especially when children are involved.
Yeah.
You know, I've actually worked a juvenile investigative role where I've investigated physical and sexual assaults against children.
Oh my gosh.
That is hard. You know, there's no getting around it. That is really difficult. But I'll be honest with you, that is the most rewarding part of my 14-year career, is when I put people in jail for hurting kids. Yeah. You know, that hands down, that's the best thing I've ever done on this job. That
is, well, thank you for putting the time in with that.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how people do that position, because the amount of information that you have to disseminate and like abuse cases, pictures, just torture, you know, of kids.
Right.
You know, and it's like, but people have to investigate and build a case, and you're going to read all that twisted shit.
Yep.
But, you know, in hopes that what you can bring to the table puts this person away for a long time, if not forever. And so thank you so much for doing that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know. Those are anything kid related are like the only thing that like gets to me, you know? And I mean, I feel like, not that I'm unique. I think that's pretty general.
Well, yeah.
For most people in this industry. And the sad part is that it still happens. It's not going to end.
Yeah.
You know, but the fact that there are people out there that are trying to make a difference, like, you know, like yourself, and taking on those positions, I mean, hats off to you. You know, that's difficult. But so we're talking about the police department and everything. So how long had you been on with LA City?
14 years. I actually just I always say I just celebrated, but it's not really a celebration. So this past March was my 14-year anniversary.
14 years. Well, I mean, congratulations for being in that long, and you know, just so everyone's aware of kind of what's going on. You want to talk a little bit about what happened to you with that?
Yeah. So I've been off work since November 3rd of 2021. That was the day that I was served with a 48-hour notice to comply with the LA City's ordinance 187-134 that required all employees to be vaccinated. On that day, I got called into the captain's office. I was presented with a choice to either sign the paper to allow them to deduct about almost $600 a month out of my paycheck. Every city employee at that time was required to take 8 PCR tests at a cost of $65 per test.
You had to pay for them?
They wanted us to pay for them, yeah. And so, I said no, I wasn't going to do it. No. So the only other option in not agreeing to sign the order of the chief was they were going to move me to termination proceedings. And so, fast forward less than a week, they served me with the termination hearing, the termination papers, which is called a board of rights. So they sent me to a board of rights, and the chief of police's recommendation was termination. So, I haven't worked since November 3rd, and it's now today's April 2nd. So I've gone through 5 days total so far of testimony in my board of rights, which is essentially set up like a tribunal where 3 civilian attorneys who are essentially employees of the LAPD Police Commission are sitting in judgment of me. So I'm acting as defendant, and the department itself is acting as prosecutor.
Really? So, okay. So let's backtrack this for just a second. So you were served this, you said November of 2021. So essentially, you had been working for, because that was probably like about a year.
It was
about roughly when COVID first
20
started.
months or so.
Right. So you'd been in the game for a minute without, this was before the vaccine existed. Right.
Leading up,
because this is all where it led up to. Because once it's out, they start adopting the policies following the.
So March of 2020 is right around when all this insanity started officially.
Yeah.
And so from March 2020 up until November 2021, I was working, on the front lines, quote unquote, as they like to put it, every single day. Yeah. No PPE. It's funny. During my hearing, I had actually addressed the fact that the LAPD's PPEs that they passed out to us was leather gardening gloves and the chemistry goggles, the ones with the holes on the side.
Yeah,
that was their PPE for us.
Oh, okay.
Super scientific.
Yeah, they're like, hold your breath when you walk into the house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just do like Garcetti, just hold your breath, and. So
it's cool. I was holding my breath, right? When he took the picture with Magic Johnson.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I'm afraid of something, I'm going to educate myself as much as possible on it. And, without hesitation, of course I was afraid of COVID at the very beginning, but once you start seeing the fact that the videos and the photos that are coming out of China of the people falling down and puking blood and, all this other stuff, it wasn't happening here. I worked Skid Row, right? No one in Skid Row was keeling over and vomiting blood and having, convulsions, and you just weren't seeing it. So I started to educate myself on what this virus was and, the science behind the masking and all this other stuff. And, after a short while, I was like, well, I'm not afraid of this, because at that time it was already known that it had a very high survivability rate. At that time it was like 99.99%. And so I said, what am I getting all worked up for? That's, to me, in my opinion, I'm not a doctor, but I saw it as a pretty severe flu, right? And I had already had that in January of 2020. After I had some surgeries, and I got super sick right away, and it lasted about a week and a half, 2 weeks. I felt the worst that I ever felt, but I recovered. So, I just set forth from there, and like, well, I don't agree with what's going on. Yeah. And that opinion's not for everybody,
I would more so share your opinion.
Right.
As it's at least how I feel personally about it. Again, not a doctor,
Right.
so I'm not claiming to be. But I did do a lot of research on it as well. And, and I just, not just coming on a dispute whether, what's true, what's not true, and all that stuff. Just at the end of the day, the thing that I felt was the most interesting layout for a lot of agencies in the public worker realm is that, I'm sure, like yourself, and I'm not trying to speak for you or anything, but like, I didn't take days off because I was worried about coming in. I didn't not work the force. I didn't not do anything and everything the department asked of me to make sure that we provide a service that I love to do and that I devoted my life to do, which I'm sure it's the same way.
Yeah.
And for that to reach a point where it was like, okay, so now there's a vaccine, which is great. Good. Okay, awesome. There's a vaccine. So everyone who's worried about it, take it. You know what I mean? That's a big conundrum with all of this. And I know there's different sides of it and whether the vaccine's safe or not safe and stuff. I don't read too much into that because I feel like at the end of the day, if you want to protect yourself, do whatever it is to protect yourself. But I should also have that right in that where if I'm doing my own research and I believe that I'll be okay, not to mention, dude, I got it probably right before it actually came out because I got super sick as well. And I thought, damn, it's the craziest flu I've ever had.
Yep.
Lasted a couple days, felt like shit. I didn't lose my taste or smell. But, anyway, so I was just like, well, I probably already had it. So that's good because up until about 2 years ago, if you got it, got a virus and then, you actually build your own antibodies. And that was which actually there was a video of Fauci that just came out where he was talking about that exact reason with the flu, saying the best thing you can do is get the flu.
Well, if she had the flu for 14 days, she shouldn't get vaccinated.
Yeah, she doesn't need it. She has the best thing, which apparently he forgot. I don't know. But, and again, I'm not a virologist, so I can't say that what works in the same manners, but either way, right? It's like you work in that atmosphere. You don't, it's like, especially like you said, in the beginning, I was kind of like, oh shit, I wonder how this is going to go. I hear about people getting it. Some had, some didn't. Some, families in the hospital for a long period of time, or even worse, people die, the stuff. So it's like, this is crazy. And then after a couple of weeks, all of a sudden, it's like numbers are coming out, and it's like, yeah, there's a whole lot of people that are getting it, and it's not the same as far as percentages-wise for survivability being so high, especially in different age categories. Do you have comorbidities, blah, blah, blah. But that's not how it got rolled out. It's all of a sudden, it was like, not to mention, which is kind of ironic, because for as much as the media shit on Trump, it was like, you fast-track this vaccine as much as possible, right, to try to get in. Once he's out of office, they get, or no, it kind of happened right as the administration was ending. But then it was like, this is it. This is what everyone has to do.
Right.
And
if you remember, though, Biden and Harris were saying, if Donald Trump is touting this vaccine, we're not going to get it. And they're advising all of their Democratic people not to get it as well.
Oh, it was like a laundry list of prominent Democratic figures talking about how they're not going to do it if Trump says, okay, Trump's out of office, Biden's in office. And I was like, everyone's got to do it. Rachel Maddow was on television saying the only thing you could do to protect yourself and everyone else is get vaccinated. Well, which was once a conspiracy, now is common knowledge that just because you're vaccinated doesn't mean you can't transmit it, doesn't mean you can't give it to anybody else or get it, right? Now, maybe, I don't know the science part about it because I feel like they're like, oh, if I'm vaccinated, I got it, I survived, it did work, right? It's like, okay, well, that'd be like me saying, I got it, I took monoclonal antibodies, I took ivermectin, I took a couple other things, and I was sick for a day.
Right.
So it's good. It's like, what's anecdotal, right? Because they both are. They're just both your personal experience with it, So I feel like it's like one of those things where it's really hard to, it's like, well, yeah, is it right or wrong? That's why it's like my overall perspective on this is that do what you want to do, But the problem is now with, especially in your circumstance where it's like employers are making it a mandate,
right?
And they're taking good employees that have committed their lives to their craft, right? And then they're like, so if you don't get vaccinated, you're out. Yeah, and that's it.
That's the incredibly disappointing part is, I have such a strong passion for policing. 14 years in, I've never wanted to do another job so much in my life, and I really, I'm grateful for every day that I've been able to be a police officer, and I hope that I'll still be able to be a police officer after this ordeal is over. But they are literally robbing me of my livelihood, something that I've strive for my entire life over something that the science is disproving, right? You know, if you can't question science, it's propaganda, right?
That's what it
Science,
used to be.
yeah, I mean, science is always changing, right? And now we're discovering with the Pfizer documents, 1,291 adverse effects that they won't talk about, right? And my big aha was, I don't know if you're familiar with the filmmaker Mickey Willis. Very early on, he came out with the movie called Plandemic. Introduced everybody to Dr. Judy Mikovits and others like her. But after watching that movie, I was like, oh my God, yeah, absolutely. And people like David E. Martin, just amazing people who just laid down and just did the outline of here's what's happening and this is why. And so, I started looking into other things like, Kerry Mullis, who was the inventor of the PCR test, and he says, this isn't meant to discover anything. The PCR test can't, discern between a live or a dead flu virus, right? And then you go into it and you learn that, well, Fauci and the CDC and the NIAID are spinning the PCR test rates, double of what they're supposed to. And if you spin them that fast, according to Kerry Mullis, you'll find anything you want to, right? And so, in July of last year, the CDC and the FDA, they took away the EUA status of the PCR test. Yeah. So if that happened, and as they said, the PCR test returns a false positive rate of over 95%. Wow. And it's like, boom, why aren't people putting two and two together? Because if that returns a false positive 95%, well, doesn't that just negate the whole pandemic itself?
Yeah, but that's the problem. That is the problem. Is that the information that like what you just said with the efficacy of the PCR tests, like the CDC said to stop using them, and that was about a year ago. Now, I know that there's agencies that still use it because it's either a rapid test or a PCR. Yeah. It's like, what do you want to abide by is being more factual in whatever that it's picking up is hitting it as a positive. I think that like the big picture of all of this is that we as a society have been pushed in this direction so hard from the top down that in order for it to like to take a huge step back, the top down has to admit that they're wrong. Right. And that doesn't happen. No. Right? That doesn't ever happen.
No, they'll double down on this.
Of course. Of course, because again, you don't want to say, if they come out, look, if Joe Biden can strum a sentence together tomorrow and comes out and be like, hey, look, we actually messed up on a lot of things. Right. So one, we're sorry. And two, we're going to try to set things straight in a better direction that's going to work for everybody and blah, 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 blah. There's no way. There's no way that would ever happen because you would have to admit that you are incorrect, which I think is part of the problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But it gets back to, people like what Goebbels used to say with the Nazis, if you tell a lie enough times, it now becomes truth. But I always think about Mark Twain, who said, it's easier to fool someone than it is to convince them that they were fooled. And that's what America's had the wool pulled over their eyes for the last 2 years.
That's a good quote from Mark Twain. It's interesting that you bring that up because I find myself like, if I ever, and look, I'm not like an aggressive person when it comes to talking about this kind of stuff. And I honestly I feel like you're never in a position to answer a question that's going to be a fast answer. Right. And I feel like when you have to do that, because if someone asks you, what do you think about the vaccines? And I'd be like, where are you going with this? Because I can tell you what I think, but in order to explain what I think, I was like, do you have like a half hour to really be able to talk about it? But then it's like, I think it's just easy to dismiss somebody like that because they'll be like, oh, well, you didn't get your information from the CDC. They said, I was watching CNN yesterday and they have the death ticker on their freaking channel.
Which is how do they get that so quickly?
I don't know. But you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, it's unfortunate because, and I'm not saying that, whatever about people that feel that way. I feel like it's tough because you automatically look incorrect to that person, right? And then they'll automatically dismiss you if it takes more than 30 seconds to explain your case.
Right.
Which in this scenario, especially like watch the movie The Pandemic, it's pretty good. And it lays a lot of things out there as far as like there's a big picture to this, not just, and that's unfortunate because I want to be like, yeah, everyone just wants to take care of everybody. That's why we're doing this. And I'm like, that's not actually how this is really going. But, it's just one of those things where you put yourself in a tough scenario to try to explain that to somebody who may, their mind is already made up. They're like, this is the worst thing ever. And honestly, to some, I get that. Maybe they had a couple family members that passed away.
Sure.
What do you say to that?
I don't discount it at all.
Right. It's just like, dude, I'm so sorry for your loss. I don't know what else to say. Like, I feel terrible for you, and I hope you the best. I'm praying for you, whatever.
Sure.
And anyway, yeah, it's tough.
But I want to make something clear. I'm not anti-vaccine at all. I'm anti-mandate. The group that I co-founded, we're anti-mandate. I don't believe that a person should be forced to do anything to their body that they don't wish to. This is a pretty serious medical experiment that they're demanding that we partake in. Just 60 years ago we had the Nuremberg trials, right? Right. We put all the Nazis on trial, Nazi doctors. Right, Nazi doctors we put on trial.
Right, not the scientists. We hired them at NASA.
Right, exactly.
Sorry. Anyway,
another rabbit hole I'll gladly go down to.
Paperclip, baby. It was
Operation Paperclip, man. But they put the doctors on trial. Right. And and again, for whatever reason, I love quotes. But there's a quote out there that says, for the greater good. The term "for the greater good" is always been the alibi of tyrants, right? And that's what's happening. When you're saying that this is for the greater good of mankind, well, if you're going to take away from me, it is not the greater good, not for me, not for mine, right? We deserve choice in our lives. Our rights as humans, right? If you believe in a deity, that's incredible. But we have God-given rights. Our rights do not come from the government. The government was put into place to protect our God-given rights, right?
Right.
And but somewhere in the last 100 years, ever since let's say 1913, the sinking of the Titanic, somewhere around there. But once the Rockefeller methodology came into modern medicine, we took away the holistic approach, right? It's the whole do no harm. That's just a crock of shit. Right? Because a patient cured is a patient lost. So to create something that keeps society perpetually sick is just creating more money for them.
Yeah. And look, at the end of the day, in order to take steps forward in like medical science breakthroughs, it is a risk versus gain. You know what I mean? The only way to find out if things work is to do the trial studies.
And that's what one of the doctors said.
Right. But the craziest part about this is that it seems like it's quite a big study, right? If they're trying to get the world essentially to take it.
Well, these vaccine trials aren't slated to end until 2023. So right now we are participating in the world's largest vaccine trial, right? We're in phase 3 of every vaccine trial.
Yeah. And that's, again, it's just, it's crazy in my opinion. Like, I feel like it's kind of nuts, but
sure.
And then at the end of the day, like I feel very similar, like how you stated. It's like, I'm not anti-vax at all. In fact, my kids just got not the COVID vaccine, but their shots and all that stuff. Like, I believe that there is a reason for a lot of this stuff, but when it comes to this scenario and how this has been unveiled and the limited time frame, time work and everything with it, again, do what you want to do.
Right.
And if you feel comfortable in that, that is your risk assessment in your own life. And I respect that.
Your fear should not ever trump my freedom. Right.
Fact.
Right.
There we go.
But that's true.
Yeah.
Right. Where else in the course of human history has, number one, the elder generation willfully sacrificed the health of the younger generation? Did I say older first?
Yes.
Yeah. So the older generation sacrifices the health of the younger generation for what? So that they can protect their own. right? I mean, that is incredibly selfish, right? I mean, this is like, are we living in end times or what? Because when tolerance and apathy, right? Those are the last virtues of a dying society. We are totally we're tolerating a lot, and we don't give a shit about a lot too, right?
Yeah.
And we're letting our civil liberties be robbed of us, right? Like, I mean, right now it's like George Carlin used to say, your rights as a citizen, they can be taken away anytime they want,
Right.
And that's what they're trying, especially we're seeing in Sacramento. I'm jumping all over the place. Stop me,
It's all good, dude. Okay, first of all, I use the word unpack. There's a lot to unpack here, actually. I'm glad you brought that up. No, it's one of those things where
steer the ship, man. Steer the ship.
No, it's all good. I actually wanted to ask you about the organization that you started.
So thank you for asking. After the ordinance was passed by the LA City, myself and 3 other individuals got together. One of them was actually my supervisor, and then a husband and wife team. They were sworn officers as well. So we got together, and because we saw what a lot of people were doing, a lot of people were saying, well, let's go ahead and submit religious exemptions. Mm-hmm. And, if you are of a religious faith, I wholeheartedly support that. But for me, I saw in the other members of my group saw this as something that's greater than just religion, right? We saw this as a total governmental overreach, trampling upon our constitutional rights. And I personally refuse to submit a religious exemption based on the grounds that I won't be locked into a document, an official LAPD document that says I believe X, Y, and Z, and at any time the LAPD can come back and challenge me on that, right? And if I don't answer the same way that I wrote it down, well, you just plagiarized this and now you're fired.
Not to mention, just talking with other people that have gone through that process with, filing for religious exemption, that is a tremendously gray area.
Absolutely.
As far as because you're going to sit down and talk with a couple people about how religious are you? Be like, what does that conversation look like?
But I have issues with Title VII, which is what the religious exemption falls under. But for me, I won't submit a piece of paper to the department begging them to still allow me to work with conditions, because at any point that department, that city can say, well, now our conditions are changing, and so now you have to abide by this, right? I saw that as something so great, it is a complete trampling on our civil liberties, and I would not do it. I won't mask, I won't test, and I won't submit a religious exemption. And that's how Roll Call for Freedom started. We were just a couple of cops that said, you know what, this is wrong and this is why. And so we went out there and, we got as much support as we could from the department. The department has 10,000 officers, right? The city of LA itself has 57,000 employees. A lot of the department chose to get vaccinated, which is their choice. A lot of them chose to do religious exemptions, which is their choice as well. My biggest belief is that it should be your choice.
Yeah.
It has to be your choice, right? We have to have informed consent, right? Because where there is risk, there must be consent.
Yeah.
Right? If there is a possibility of me dying from getting this experimental mRNA technology injected into my body, I will not do it, because I'm informed of it and I won't participate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's where Roll Call for Freedom started, and now it's grown. We just ended up filing after 7 months. We went through several law firms to finally settle on one that really saw us eye to eye. And so we just filed on March 15th. We have 100 plaintiffs, and we filed a suit against the city.
Yeah. Good for you guys. I wish you nothing but luck with that.
Yeah, I mean, where one succeeds, everyone does, right?
Yeah.
We are so, I really believe in this, because I mean, precedent needs to be set. And so much information has come out over the last 7 months that you have to acknowledge it. You know, when Pfizer, you know, one of the three major companies who's also been responsible for the largest payout in history for medical, you know, basically medical malpractice of like $2.3 billion for doing what? For buying off doctors, for lying about medications, right? Mm-hmm. If they, you know, they suddenly don't want to release the findings of their studies for 55 years or 75 years?
They tried to do 75,
right.
And I think it's still, there hasn't been a date set yet.
Right. But I mean, that doesn't sound shady to you, right?
Yes, it sounds incredibly shady.
Right.
That's the,
so,
but again, that just that statement in itself, depending on what, you know, where you get your news from, you probably didn't know that even was a thing.
Right.
Because if I told you, it's like, hey, I did some, you know, actually that was a bad example. But in that case, right, if someone who has information about at least initial, whether it's, you know, reactions from the medication, you know, or from the vaccine, and even if it's a lower number, right, let's say it's a lower number. Like, let's say it was something that even the public might go, okay, risk versus gain, and the people agreed with it. The company tried to file to say, hey, let's make sure no one can see this for 75 years. Because what we know now, at least in society, is that most people are going to forget next week.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we are on a very short-term memory. I mean, shit, the day before the Oscars, that finally people acknowledged that this Hunter Biden laptop thing is an actual thing.
Right. 526 days later.
Right.
Yeah.
526 days later, you have mainstream media actually talking about it, and then you have the Grammys, and then you have the infamous smack.
Right.
The smack heard around the world. And what did you hear the next morning? Nothing about Hunter Biden.
No.
And look, I'm not talking about the Hunter Biden likes to party and do drugs and bang prostitutes. I could give a shit about that. My problem with that is that it's like, okay, well, there's actually something here talking about foreign influence when his dad was the VP, and then all of a sudden their family comes into millions and millions and millions of dollars in a 3-year stretch.
Right, it was $16 million, I think, over the course of that.
$16 million over 3 years, and they were making $390,000 a year.
Right.
Anyway, but the night before,
you've heard this before, Tim.
But the night before, that's what I'm saying. It was like, okay, something happened. I'm like, oh my God, they're actually talking about it. I was like, a year ago, if I said this right now, people would be like, that guy is a crazy right-wing conspiracist.
Right.
Take him off.
Right.
Right? And now, all of a sudden, I'm like, oh shit, it's happening.
Right.
It's fucking on TV. They're talking about it, you know?
It's
happening, yeah. And then Will Smith smacks Chris Rock, and now all we want to talk about is Will Smith and his...
Well, now we're talking about alopecia, right? Alopecia medication.
I'm losing my hair, so I have, you know, I feel
the Oscars brought to you.
Jada.
The Oscars brought to you by Pfizer BioNTech.
Okay, there you go. Who happened to release the results of their phase 3 alopecia medication
exactly.
that night? Mm-hmm. Look, I get it. I'm going to sound nuts, and I'm okay with that. And when people say that, I'm like, "Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist," I'll be like, "Listen, I'm not. I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
What a conspiracy realist.
What I am,
they're all coming true, though.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I need new ones.
That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
I need new ones.
I'm like, look, I'll go back to the alien stuff. Okay.
Right.
You know, I was like, that one, yeah. Then I'll be like the outsider and be like, oh, you know, I'm like, hey, don't do that. You know, just in case. 5G.
Dinosaurs never existed, by the way.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And you know, but it's just the. Actually, I was having this exact conversation with my wife the other night, and she's just like, Jordan, come on. Like, is it always that coincidental? Always? And I'm like, I don't know. Is it? How come it always seems to line up? And I look, the world is a crazy place. Shit happens all the time. All the time. But it sure is interesting when things align like that. And it happens a lot.
I don't believe I don't believe in that stuff anymore. You know, there are no coincidences. You know, and for every day, I feel like that meme of Charlie Day with the like, this is what I feel like every single day.
It's the best meme.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. You know, but that's how I feel every day. You know, and my friends are just looking at me like, you know, like a monkey that just took a dump on the floor and scratching his like what? You know?
Yeah, you're like, okay, I'm gonna start slow.
Yeah.
You know, this is where we're going to begin. And it's get a little crazy here for about 20 minutes. No, but you know what? And that's the thing, right? Is that I feel like in society, We are quick to analyze, make judgment, and then step on and keep moving forward. Unless it comes to COVID, because then
Well, I think in the last couple of years, if we've learned anything, it's been to investigate for ourselves.
Right.
And that's what the last few years has taught me. I rely on nobody else but myself, on my own intellect. Can I make this judgment? What can I look at all angles?
Yeah.
And that's been the greatest gift of the last couple of years for me.
I would agree with that. I would say, and hopefully that's encouraging for people, to hear, because I know there's a lot of people that are like that too. And I think for a lot of people, they're just tired of the same old BS. And
right.
There is a lot of opportunity to do your own research and things, and I would encourage everyone to do so.
And we literally have the world's most powerful encyclopedia in the palm of our hand, but yet we just scroll on it,
Although this isn't an iPhone though, so it's the second most powerful.
Oh, is that the Obama phone? Is that what that is?
Whoa, dude! Those were Androids, not Samsungs.
Right.
Okay. Just real quick, the organization, the roll call. Freedom?
It's the roll call, the number 4, freedom. Yeah.
Roll call number 4. Now, how would anyone listening? How would we find that on Instagram, Facebook? Do you have our own webpage?
We have our own webpage. Yeah, it's like I said, roll call the number 4 freedom.com. We also have Instagram. We're so incredibly shadow banned on Instagram that I had to create obviously a backup account. So we have roll call for freedom as our main account, and then roll call for freedom 2.0.
Okay.
And then, we also have a Give, Send, Go, where people can donate to our cause. And we don't take a dime from any of this. All of this goes to pay for our attorneys, which it's a substantial fee.
Absolutely. That stuff ain't cheap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. And now getting, sorry, we've gone all over the place here, but most important of you being on here tonight, I can say tonight, right? And then let's say anyway, you are running for assembly.
Right. Yeah.
All right, dude.
Yeah.
Bang, bang. Dude, that's awesome. So a couple quick things. If you can just describe what it means to run for assembly and what exactly it is you do and how you got started with that.
So the state assembly is basically the lower house of the state house. You have the assembly members, and then you have the state senators. Assembly members, pretty much the same role as a senator. Mm-hmm. You're crafting laws, and your bills will be through committee, and then it'll be passed within the assembly, and then they'll move up to the Senate for approval, which then, if your bill passes Senate approval, it then goes on to the governor's desk. So, in speaking for the last 7 months at rallies, I've been trying to really get people engaged, right? Thank God for the moms of this country, of this state, because they have been doing such incredible work. Thank God for my partner, the other co-founder, Angelica, because she has been doing so much work. I mean, such a brilliant woman. But I've been trying to get more people involved in because I don't know, for a lot of this, it's like if you remember, high school projects, you got the geeks that do all the work, and then the football star comes in and he's like, yeah, there's my signature. Nice.
Right. Yeah.
People want the result, but they don't want to do the work that's needed to get the result. And so I've been trying to get people involved, get out there. If you don't like your form of government, change it, right? That is the essence of liberty, right? In our government, if we don't like it, we can change it. And people don't realize that. We have the power of the people is greater than the people in power. Right. And so I kind of took that to heart.
Sorry. Big quote.
I took that to heart because, I've gone through 5 days so far of my Board of Rights. I've testified for 5.5 hours alone, and I have been put through the ringer, and it has cost me everything, and I keep trying to get people involved to change the narrative. And so, the last day that I went, I thought it was going to be it. I thought I was going to get fired. Right. I got put off to another day at the end of April, but I had said to myself, well, I need to have another plan, because I still operate under winners don't have a plan B, right? And that's how I'm approaching this board of rights. Winners don't have a plan B. I'm going to win this, right? I'm going to set precedent, and I'm going to go back to work, right?
Yeah.
That's like a big F you to everybody, right? And I'm doing what I'm doing. Roll Call for Freedom's doing what we're doing for the protection of everyone, for everyone's rights, for everyone's civil liberties. We're standing up, right? Because you took an oath as well, right? We don't just, I hate the term, but the sheepdog, right? We're protecting the flock, right? And that's what we want to get. That's what we want to get across. So I was thinking to myself, like, well, I've got to step up because my words have to match my actions, right? And if I'm telling people to get involved, I need to do something myself. So, one late Sunday night, I'm sitting there mulling it over. I haven't slept well in like 5 months. It's been crazy. But I said, I was wrestling with the decision, like, do I want to do this? Do I want to do this? And finally I just said, fuck it. Yeah, I do, because I need to leave. I'm all full of quotes, but, I keep saying that, I'm taking a stand right now so that I can leave a country for my children where they'll still be able to. Right. And that's really important for me. Those two kids are the most important thing in my life. And I need to be a man where they can model their own lives after, where they can look up to me and say, you know what, 2022, my dad, he did this for us. Right. And I think it's important in all of our lives. All of us who have children, this is the greatest gift that we have, is protect our kids. Yeah. Right. And if the people out there who are bitching and screaming, we need to do this for our children, but you can't get off your ass, where are you? Right?
Yeah.
And thank God for the moms, really. Thank God for moms, because they are kicking ass out there and they are making a difference. But I said to myself, like, I need to do something. So I decided, I looked up who's up for re-election. Unfortunately, the state senator out in my area he's not up for another 2 years. But the lifelong Democrat politician in my area, he's up for re-election. He's been in politics since he was 28, and this guy's in his like mid 50s, early 60s, and he's been a politician his entire lives. And I'm not a politician. I'm just a pissed off dad. I'm a cop, right? I'm in this to make a difference. I'm in this to protect people because, again, I abide by my oaths, foreign and domestic. Right. And so that's why I felt the need that I had to step up and do something and put my name to something that I want to make a change. And, if I can do my small part, that's what I'm going to do.
Well, dude, first of all, I commend you and your actions. Just, going over everything for the last hour. I mean, I don't know. I'm just guessing. I normally get the feel right around that. No, but it all boils down to, it's really easy to talk about stuff. It's really easy. And I'm like, we all do it. Right. Whether you do it at work, you do it at home, whatever. And there's a lot of great ideas that flow around. And the hard part is getting those things to stick and to move. Like because at the end of the day, it's like, how do we really change it? The only way is to do the shit that you're doing.
You can never change if you stay within your comfort zone.
Right. Which is hard for a lot of people, including myself. Like, I'll sit here and be like, yeah, I'm championing the shit out of you.
Yeah, but you guys have this great show.
Well, this is our part of being able to get, people like yourself and others out there to speak your truths and what you want to see and how you want to change it. And I think the most interesting part, at least for the timeline of how messed up a lot of things are right now, the uniqueness is that your situation makes you stand out.
Yeah.
And that 28-year lifetime assemblyman who's won over and over and over and over and probably hasn't done shit. I mean, let's be real here. I mean, because you could say that about most politicians, is when you say, oh, they've been in that position for how long? 20 years running? What fucking, no one's fixing my potholes. No one's doing, you know what I mean? It's like, where is all this money that I pay out of my check willingly? It doesn't ever get represented, to at least anything in my general direction, and not that that's what it has to be, but what I'm saying is that now we've reached this point in society where I think that's the outliers stand out. And now you go up against this long-term probably slick politician, right? And is groomed and knows how to talk in front of people and knows how to say right key verbiage when he needs to say it, and probably has a lot of people that are going to vote or would think to vote for him just because he's been the guy for the last 10 years.
Right.
Shit, we're going to go with him. But it's guys like you or gals like you that come out there and they're like, look, I am a fucking normal person. I work my ass off. Whether you have a family or not, whatever. But hey, this community is important to me.
Exactly.
And I want to do everything that I can to, one, make sure everyone is, as safe as they can be or has the opportunity to do what they want to do. And, we can be productive in society together. Right. And then I think when you get people that come out there that are like, you're like, oh shit, this guy's been a police officer, got a couple kids, whatever the case is. And, listening to you talk, you're like, dude, this seems like a guy to be having a beer with.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, okay, all right, now we're moving somewhere. Because I'll be honest with you, when I hear most politicians talk, I think, what's this guy trying to get from me?
Right.
What's this gal trying to convince me of that I should think a certain way about something? I don't trust it.
And you should
a little bit of my conspiratorial side of me,
but you shouldn't trust politicians, and that's why I'm adamant that I'm not a politician. But I'm smart enough to say I don't have all the answers, but I'm also humble enough to go and search for one. Right. Because we weren't meant to be professional politicians. The framers of the Constitution didn't set up that way. Right. They were farmers who would come to Washington, do their business, and return right back to their farms. That's how the framers of the Constitution intended it to be. Exactly. A government for the people, by the people, and of the people, right?
Right.
And these guys up in Sacramento, these guys in Washington, they've sold their souls to special interest groups, to buy to pharmaceutical companies, right? I mean, can you imagine if Congress, if you had to list all of the the beneficiaries of this, it would look like a NASCAR uniform.
I wish they would do that.
Right.
Because at least we could see who they're getting paid the most by.
Of course.
It would just be like Nancy Pelosi in a Pfizer uniform.
Exactly.
Like just all Pfizer. That's it.
Yeah.
They won this year. Their guys are giving me $16 million.
Right.
Yeah. No, it is crazy. And I don't think it's not that I don't trust every politician. I just don't believe everything that they say.
Right.
And I feel like they like the standard politician, this is both ends of the spectrum, this is not unique to any side, is that they know what you want to hear. Mm-hmm. They know it. They know who they're preaching to. They know who they're talking to. And if they say something about either rights or they say something about whatever, that they know that target audience is going to go, yes, at least they're still talking about it. Maybe something will change.
Right.
But that's the problem, is that nothing really changes. It's just more bureaucracy and, hey, we're going to get 16 more million for the schools or for this one school.
Right.
Well, if you go to that school, you're like, hey, we got all new pencil sharpeners, which they don't use those anymore. But you know what I mean? Like, right? I think everyone's an iPad now. I don't
Pretty
know.
much.
My kids aren't in school yet, but it's like you want to believe them, but I feel like they're just full of shit 99% of the time.
Yeah.
So at least there is an opportunity to shake things up.
Yeah.
And that's by getting not career politicians in there. And I'm not saying you could just hire Joe Schmo off the street with no background, right? You still want smart people in those positions, or at least people that you can be like, you know what, I believe this guy is going to, whatever your whatever your, I don't want to say slogan, but what you're running on, your platform you're running on, you at least abide by that.
Right.
Because it's like, what else do you got to lose? You're like, hey, this is what I want to do. This is where I think we should go. And I feel like there's a large amount of people out there that would agree with me. Let's do this.
Yeah. And I think 2020, going to November of 2022, this is the election in California is the most important election, not only for governor and especially Secretary of State, right? Because that controls the election integrity. But I think all down ticket, we really need to examine who's running for office, because where California goes, the adage, so does the rest of the country.
Yeah.
And when we have politicians like Scott Wiener and Richard Pan and Evan Lowe and that whole clique, I mean, they are forcing through these bills so fast. And, when you get to, things like SB 1464, which directly affects law enforcement, right? It says, law enforcement shall enforce the shall enforce, any health order, right? So if Barbara Ferrer in Los Angeles County says, you know what, cases are rising again, I want everyone masked. And if you go into a restaurant without a mask, they're going to expect the LAPD to come in and arrest you, right? It makes Barbara Ferrer essentially a de facto police chief, right? And if Michael Moore or Sheriff Villanueva or Chad Bianco or, whomever else down here says, you know what, we're not going to enforce that. It's unconstitutional. Well, then that de facto police chief, the health czar, can say, well, we're going to withhold funds from you then. And we're going to, distribute those funds as we see fit. Well, that's going to change the minds of a lot of police chiefs, right? Yep. And I think that, again, the Charlie Day, red string, 1464 is going to affect 871. It's going to affect all this other stuff because now they're passing stuff through committee where, the kids are going to be, they want the kids to be COVID tested at all times. And it's just like, where is it going to stop?
I don't, the unfortunate side, I think when it comes to anything, when the government or when the political side of thing has the ball rolling, it's really hard to stop that ball.
Especially in a super majority.
Yes, absolutely. And even more so, because I think with, for the California Assembly, isn't it it's like 90-20 as far as
there's
Democrat to
There's
Republican?
80 seats, and it's 60,
okay. Sorry, I was guessing.
60 Democrats to 19 Republicans and 1 independent.
So typically, most things will get pushed through the assembly. Mm-hmm. But again, right? How do you stop it? You're doing what you're doing. Yeah. And so the 41st district?
Yeah, it's going to be Assembly 41. On Instagram right now, I'm at McMahon, MCMAHON _ Assembly 41. And then my website is almost ready.
Okay, awesome. When is the when is the vote for this?
So the primaries are June 7th. Because of redistricting, I actually have to run as a write-in. They struck off 24 names that I had submitted, so I didn't qualify for the ballot. But if it was important enough for me to run in the first place, it's still as important to run as a write-in candidate. And as far as I know, I'm the only other Republican contender.
Oh, okay.
Running against the Democratic incumbent.
And the Democratic incumbent is the guy that you said that's been on for
Yeah, he's been in politics since I think he was about 28.
What are the odds he'd want to come on here and do a debate with you?
I seriously doubt it.
How rad would that be?
He's one of the co-authors of SB2, which is the reimagining of policing.
So that's a hard no that I'm assuming.
Yeah.
That would be cool because I think that would if those type of politicians had any, the old school term would be having the balls to do it, but I wouldn't know what you would say now. Just having the courage. There we go. That's a safe way
in a metaphysical sense.
The metaphysical courage to come out and be able to talk about that on a forum like this, where you can have the debate with one-on-one. Look, we can be civil and we can talk about stuff, but I don't think that would ever happen because, they wouldn't want to get caught in between and backtracking and whatnot. But, but I feel like that would at least if politicians would do stuff like that to actually come on and long form conversation, be able to debate something and talk about it, not just a rehearsed 30-second cameo of what your stance is on a certain matter. Then people might have the opportunity to really evaluate that candidate.
Right.
Because I feel like there's a lot of up-and-comers and people that are getting involved because of the situation that we've just dealt with over the last 4 years, or 3.5 years technically, I guess, that I think there's, then we really might actually affect a change in our country, or at least in our community at the local level.
And it's also great, too, because there's a lot of law enforcement actually running for office this year as well. Oh. There's myself, there's Vincent Tsai, who's an LASD deputy, and he's running for the Senate in the 22nd District. Brian Smith, who's an LASD deputy as well, and he's running for LA County Board of Supervisors. And there's even Patrick Lee Gibson, who's, again, another deputy, but he's running against Adam Schiff.
Oh.
So law enforcement is really stepping up in the 2022 elections, because we're just dads, right? We're dads that we've had enough about what's happening and the fact that our choices are being taken away from us. So,
Who's the guy running against Adam Schiff?
Patrick Lee Gibson.
Patrick Lee Gibson.
GIPSON.
Okay. Good luck, dude. Please beat that guy. That dude lied to everybody
Everyone.
for 2 years in a row. Got upset. Today, we got a new smoking gun. The president's got collusion with it. Literally came out in the last year that all of that is an absolute lie. And that guy didn't say a damn thing.
Well, I mean, the Clinton campaign in the DNC just got fined like $170,000 for the dossier.
Yeah, and I also think that Trump's I think he was trying to take them all to court.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he sued them all.
Yeah, so the process has begun, which will be very interesting just from outside perspective, just to see what happens. But honestly, man, thank you so much for coming on.
I appreciate it.
I feel like we could go on, dude, in the conspiratorial side, and we can go rabbit hole and talk for the next 4 hours. So, maybe that is for you, sir.
Oh, that's cool, man. Love the challenge coins.
Maybe
thank you, guys.
Either after the election or whatever happens, maybe we can get a little bit of a follow up and see how you're doing, or at least be able to game plan and talk about what you want to change.
Yeah.
Because again, I know we kind of jumped around for a little bit, but again, dude, thank you so much for coming on.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, dude. I wish you the best of luck, and anything we can do to help support you and get you in that seat, man.
Yeah.
Most importantly, I hope you get back on the floor. Really.
Yeah. I like I said, I still have a really great passion, and it's been the best experience of my life is serving the citizens of Los Angeles, and I hope I can continue.
Well, I hope people, when they go to vote for the District 41 for Assembly, they remember what you're saying, because I know we all appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Mike, also on that challenge coin, you like quotes. We have a Mark Twain quote on there. 2 most important days of your life.
Exactly.
The day you're born, the day you find out why.
Yeah.
I think you found your why, brother.
Yeah, exactly. I keep going there. Just to wrap it up, there's a Confucius quote that I like too. A man that wants to move a mountain must first start with the smallest stones, right? And that's what we're doing, right? We're trying to change California by moving the small stones.
Yeah.
One stone at a time, dude.
Right.
Absolutely. Hey, let's get a let's go on 3 here. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Let's go.
All right, bye, everybody.
And that's it. Thank you for listening in, everybody. We'd like to thank our sound engineer who makes this podcast happen and makes us sound very good, Stephen Clark. And to our first sponsor, 89 Barbers. Look good, feel good, be great. Come get your haircut at 2 locations, Long Beach and in Orange, California. Your appointment can be booked at 89barbers.com. That is EIGHTNINE BARBRERS. 89barbers.com. Again, look good, feel good, be great. Check it out. It's my barber. He is the man. Thanks, everybody. Bye.